Today we're going to take a little food journey to the UK and we're going to make absolutely stunning sausage rolls. So I've been starting to think about Thanksgiving. I like to make a beef Wellington on Thanksgiving, so puff pastry has been on my mind, and I've been thinking, what else can I make with puff pastry for this channel? And bam, sausage rolls. I haven't made those for you guys. I love sausage rolls. I love anything with sausage in it to begin with. So we're going to start with the filling. This is a bratwurst style kind of plain unseasoned sausage. Try to stay away from like the sweet Italians unless that's really the flavor you want. To that, we're going to add some finely diced raw onions. Those will cook as this cooks together. You could caramelize them first if you want, but you really don't need to. A little bit of pepper, a good amount of salt. We like to eat these kind of lukewarm, so that salt will cut through more as they cool down, in my personal opinion. I'm going to add a little paprika, a little bit of chili pepper, and then breadcrumbs. That's about a tablespoon. The breadcrumbs are there to soak up that fat and keep it inside your sausage roll so it doesn't all just leak out. You don't need to do it, but a lot of people love it. And then I'm just going to mix that up by hand. Once you get it nice and evenly mixed, I'm going to transfer it out onto some cling film, and we're going to make kind of a log shape. This is very Wellington-esque, so it's right in my comfort zone, right in my wheelhouse. And we're just going to kind of roll this up, get it nice and tight, and throw it into the fridge for a little while we let everything else come together, which is really just the puff pastry. I'm going to make this thinner at the end of this video, but the size right now doesn't matter, in my opinion. You will be able to adjust it. But that's what you're looking for. And now throw that into the fridge. I'm going to pull out the puff pastry. I've never used this brand before, which is one of the reasons I wanted to make this recipe, to test out some new puff pastries for when I do a Wellington. So we let that sit out for about 45 minutes until it came to room temperature and was easy enough to work with. And now I'm going to cut off, it's kind of in like a tri-fold here. I'm going to cut off that bottom seam just because I don't really need it, and I want to have as large of a piece as possible that's uninterrupted by seams, and that middle piece is that. And now we're going to cut the meat in half, and I'm going to make that my filling. Stretch it out until it evenly fills your puff pastry. Once I transfer it on, I'm going to continue to try to make sure it's nice and even. You don't want any spots that are way thinner than others. And now we're going to roll this. That's a little bit of egg wash there, which is just egg yolk mixed with like a tablespoon of water. Get that first piece egg wash so it attaches nice to the meat. Roll it over, find where your seam is going to be, egg wash it a little more, and now bring that together. As you roll it over yourself, you can kind of squeeze it back together to get any air pockets out or really help that shape. Once you do that, I'm going to cut off the excess that I don't need of that puff pastry. You want to try to make sure you're really not making a double layer on the bottom. It might make that pastry a little undercooked if it's too thick, but then I'm going to pinch that seam together. I like to give it a little bit of rolling at this point, which will help that seam, and it'll also help to even out the roll shape. And then once you do that, I'm going to throw that onto, you could put it on parchment paper if you want. This is just a little silicone baking sheet. And we're going to throw that into the freezer for about half an hour. It cuts so much easier when you freeze it. Once you pull it from the freezer, I'm going to cut the ends off first. There's usually a little bit of extra dough, so you want to cut that down to just where you can see the sausage flat up against the very end. Right about that is what you're looking for. Now I'm going to cut these in half. If you want to eat them kind of like longer rolls like that and just have one long piece, that's totally fine. I'm just going to cut these then again in half so we have quarters from that original piece. That's going to make them a little more like, not bite-sized, but they're going to be more party size or easy to handle rather than a whole roll. But you can cut them however you wish. I'm going to throw those now onto a smaller baking sheet because I'm not cooking both of those long rolls at the same time. I'm going to now cover them with some egg wash. I'm not going to egg wash the bottom because that usually tends to burn because of the hot side facing down. And then I'm going to score these with the back of the knife, which just gives a little bit of detail. You don't need to do that. I'm going to put a little more egg wash over those score marks. And then I'm going to give them a very light dusting of salt. We're going to now throw these into an oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 35 minutes. Here we are, it was right about that 35-minute mark. Just take them out when they're golden brown. If for you that's right at 28-30 minutes, go ahead, pull them out. I'm going to just dab off some of that oil because I'm going to let these cool down for about 30 minutes because they taste better kind of lukewarm. Everyone says that, and I tend to agree. There's just something about them that's better at that lukewarm temperature. So after about 30 minutes, I threw them on a plate with a little bit of mustard. I'm going to get all fancy on you guys here and give a little mustard swipe there with that spoon. You don't need to do that. That's for YouTube. But look how beautiful these are. The outside of that sausage has gotten a little bit golden brown. The puff pastry is golden brown. Everything about this looks absolutely delicious. And that's how they taste. These are fantastic. They're a fun little snack. They're going to be a little pink on the inside because of the nitrates in sausage, but they are fully cooked. This is just a fantastic snack. You could tweak those flavors however you want, and you will love these.